The Naksa, a nation dispossessed, a people under siege, the ongoing genocide of Palestine. In the summer of 1967, the world watched in astonishment as the map of the Middle East was redrawn in just 6 days. But for Palestinians, this wasn't a sudden shift. It was the continuation of a systematic erasure, an escalation of a catastrophe that began nearly 2 decades earlier. The 1967 war, known to Palestinians as Al-Naksa, the setback, was not simply a military defeat. It was a crushing blow that cemented a brutal reality, the near-total occupation of Palestine and the beginning of one of the longest-running military occupations in modern history. From the Nakba to the Naksa, a calculated strategy of erasure. To understand the Naksa, one must begin in 1948, the year of the Nakba, the catastrophe. In that year, the State of Israel was declared on land that, just months before, had been the home of historic Palestine. Through a violent campaign of ethnic cleansing, Zionist militias expelled approximately 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, razing over 500 villages, and ensuring that a new state, founded on exclusion and racial hierarchy, could emerge. The world hailed Israel as a beacon of democracy, ignoring the screams of the dispossessed and the orphan children who fled with only the keys to homes they would never see again. The Nakba was not an isolated act of war, it was the foundational trauma of a people, made permanent through bulldozers, laws, and tanks. The 1948 war ended with Israel controlling 78% of historic Palestine. The remaining 22%, the West Bank and Gaza Strip, fell under the administration of Jordan and Egypt, respectively. The 1967 war, the total occupation of Palestine. Then came June 1967. Israel launched a surprise attack against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, defeating their armies in a matter of days. But the war was more than a military campaign, it was a calculated territorial conquest. By the war's end, Israel had seized the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the Syrian Golan Heights, and the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. Palestine, what was left of it, was now completely under Israeli control. This war marked not only a shift in geography but in brutality. More than 300,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes, including 130,000 who had already been displaced in 1948. It was a second, cruel exile for many. Israel now held territory 3.5 times its original size, and with it, millions of Palestinians who would live, and die, under occupation. A state built on dispossession sustained by violence. For Israel, the war was hailed as a triumph. For Palestinians, it was the beginning of an unending nightmare. Military checkpoints, illegal settlements, house demolitions, administrative detentions without trial, children tried in military courts, journalists silenced, and entire families bombed into oblivion. What followed the Naksa was not simply occupation, it was the methodical construction of an apartheid regime, a state founded on Jewish supremacy and maintained through systematic oppression of Palestinians. Under the veneer of democracy, Israel perfected a model of control that has now become a template for authoritarian regimes worldwide. The Gaza Strip, a narrow enclave of 2.3 million people, is today an open-air prison, blockaded by land, sea, and air. Entire generations have grown up under siege, denied the most basic human rights. In the West Bank, the story is one of fragmentation, a map divided by walls, checkpoints, and settlements, where freedom of movement is a luxury and land theft is a daily reality. Genocide in slow motion. The term genocide is not to be used lightly, but what else describes the erasure of a people's identity, the displacement of its population, the murder of its children, and the denial of its right to exist? International law defines genocide not just as mass killing, but as any act committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. When Israel bombs densely populated civilian areas in Gaza, knowing full well that there is no escape, is this not genocide? When Palestinian children are shot by snipers while playing or suffocated in tear gas, or buried under rubble, what name do we give this if not terror? This is not about conflict. It is about colonial domination. It is not a war. It is a systematic annihilation of a people who simply ask for dignity, for land, for home. A call to conscience. The Naksa is not just a historical event. It is a wound that bleeds to this day. Every year that passes without justice deepens the trauma. Every day under occupation is another day of suffering. Every dollar that funds Israeli bombs, every veto that shields it from accountability, is a stain on the conscience of humanity. To speak of Palestine is to speak of resistance. Of steadfast mothers raising children amid ruins. Of journalists risking their lives to tell truths the world refuses to hear. Of a people who refuse to be erased. Palestine is not a footnote in a history book. It is a cry for justice that echoes from the ruins of Deir Yassin to the streets of Jenin. It is the story of a people who will not be broken, not by bombs, not by silence, and not by betrayal. And until the world hears them, the Naksa will not end. Writer, researcher, and advocate for human rights and historical justice.